Hi friends! Today we're going to be continuing to talk about trapezoids. We're going to focus specifically on medians of trapezoids. But before we get too far into that, I want to go back to this quadrilateral family tree. So pause the video if you need to for a second and find that, because we're going to fill in these two spots here. So we've already filled out the quadrilateral and parallelogram piece of this. And if you remember, a parallelogram and a trapezoid are different shapes because of their definitions. So parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides, and then the definition of trapezoid, it has exactly one pair of parallel sides. And you may remember that those parallel sides, in this picture it looks like it's the left and the right. It's not always going to be the top and the bottom of your trapezoid, it's the two that are parallel, so they'll never intersect each other. Those are called the bases. So this is a base and this is a base. And then the two non-parallel sides, those are called the legs. Now, trapezoids and parallelograms do have something in common. They are both quadrilaterals, which means they're both going to have four sides. And if you remember that all four-sided shapes, the sum of their interior angles is always 360 degrees. Well, a trapezoid is a four-sided shape, so the sum of the interior angles will be 360 degrees. So that's true for both the parallelogram and the trapezoid. But what makes them different is this only has one pair of parallel sides and the parallelogram has two. Now, besides just trapezoids, there's a special kind of trapezoid called the isosceles trapezoid. And then our definition of the isosceles trapezoid was that the legs are congruent. So in this picture, it looks like the top and the bottom are our bases. So I'm going to mark those ones parallel, which means the left and the right would be congruent. So that's also going to make the base angles congruent. So these two would be congruent, and these upper two would be congruent. So we have two pairs of base angles, remembering that the base angles are the angles that touch the same base. So these two angles are both touching the bottom, which is a base, and these angles are both touching the top, which is a base. And then the third one was that the diagonals are congruent. So I think we talked about that the other day, how a rectangle has that same property as well, but that's really the only thing they have in common because a rectangle is a parallelogram, so it's not a trapezoid. They just happen to have the same property. All right, so let's go to medians of trapezoids then. So we talked about the median the other day kind of in very basic terms and just did a couple basic problems. Today we're going to up it a little notch and we're going to challenge ourselves. So the median is the segment that joins the midpoints of the legs. I think we might have said it a little bit differently the other day. I just want to give us another view of it. Segment that joins the midpoint, sorry, I'm abbreviating, of the legs. All right, so what that's going to look like is if we have a trapezoid, midpoint of both of those connected, this right here is our median. And you also might remember from the other day that the median is the average of the bases. So it's going to be the average of the bases. And I think I said it a little bit differently the other day as well, but the average is when you add them together and divide by how many there are. So there are two bases in my picture. So I'm going to add the bases. I'm going to call it base 1 and base 2. And then because there's two of them, I'm going to divide by 2. So our median is equal to the sum of the bases divided by 2. All right, so we're going to use that information here and we're going to apply it to these four problems. So hopefully today's notes will be pretty short because we only have these four to attack. So in example 1, ABCD is an isosceles trapezoid. So we remember what that means. It means the legs are congruent. It means the diagonals are congruent and the base angles are congruent. So all of that is from this right here. The bases are A, B, and D, C. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those parallel because I know those are the bases, which means these are the legs, and so they will be congruent. And then SF is our median. So AB is 4x, SF is 80, and DC is 120. So I'm just going to plug in what I know. So AB is 4x, SF is 80, and DC is 120. So we're going to find out how big x is, and we're going to use that to find AB if we need to. We actually might be able to do some logical thinking to figure this out. We don't necessarily need a formula, but we'll do it kind of both ways. So if you have an idea, please pause the video, see what you can figure out first. You don't have to wait for me to try something. I am not the answer key. There's lots of different ways you can attack this problem. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to think non-algebraically first. So I'm just going to kind of play around with the numbers. So you might remember from yesterday that, or the Friday, whenever you watch this video from the other trapezoids, that the distance here and the distance here will be the same. So how far away is 80 from 120? So we can just do 120 minus 80. So this distance right here is 40. Well, if 80 is the median, then this has to be 40 away and that has to be 40 away. So 80 minus 40, that means AB should equal 40 units. Does that logical thinking make sense? If not, it's okay, because we can actually use this idea right here to do some algebra. So the algebra of this would be base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2, right? And that was equal to the median. So base 1, we can use just the top for base 1, 4x plus, now base 2 is the 120, because those were the parallel sides, 120 divided by 2, and that should equal the median, right? The median is equal to that. And we know our median is 80. Sorry, you might be able to hear my dog shaking. She's rubbing herself all over the couch while I'm trying to make this video. All right, so now we're going to solve this equation. So we've got some algebra to do here. So there's a couple things we can do. Some people like to divide both of these parts by 2 first. Great strategy. Some people like to get rid of the divided by 2 by multiplying by 2. Great strategy. There's no one right way to do this. We just have to make sure that we're doing the math correctly. For this problem, I'm going to just go ahead and multiply by 2. So that will cancel these 2's out. So 4x plus 120 equals 80 times 2 is 160. Subtract 120. 4x equals 40. Divide by 4. And x would equal 10. And then if x is 10, we can plug that back up in here. So AB would be 4 times 10, which is 40. So multiple ways that you can do these. Sometimes you'll be able to just use logical thinking. You might be able to do the math in your head. Awesome, do it. Just make sure that you're able to articulate what you did. So either by explaining it in words or showing some math work to go with it. If you just write 40 and I don't know how you got 40, it's hard for me to know if you did your math right or if you got lucky. So just practice articulating, explaining how you got your answers. All right, let's look at number 2. We've got another trapezoid. It does not tell us this one's isosceles. So we don't know if the legs are congruent. We do know that TR is the median, and the median is always between our bases. So that means X, Y, and SU are going to be the bases. We know that XY is 2X plus 15. TR is 50 and SU is 3x. Now in this last problem, we had 2 sets of numbers, so we could actually find out how far away they were from each other and then use some logical thinking. But here, like, we can't find out how far away 50 is from 3x because we don't know what x is. And same thing here, we don't know what x is, so we can't find out our distance. So we're not going to be able to use that logical thinking strategy here. So we might need to lean on this algebraic strategy instead. So if we do the algebraic strategy, we need to add our bases, base 1 plus base 2, and then divide it by 2. So it doesn't matter which one you call your base 1 and which one's base 2. You're just going to add them together and divide by 2. So 2x plus 15 plus 3x. So base 1, base 2, we're going to divide that by 2. and that's equal to the median, and our median is 50. All right, so again, multiple ways you can solve this. You can add your like terms first. You can divide everything by 2. You can get rid of divided by 2 by multiplying by 2. My personal preference is to not look at the fraction, so I will always try to get rid of that fraction by multiplying by the denominator. This is one strategy. It is not the only strategy. It's not the best strategy. It's just a strategy. Except I don't want to multiply by 3, not trying to confuse you. Sorry about that. Multiply by 2. All right, so these 2's will cancel out. We've got 2x plus 15 plus 3x equals 100. Now I'm going to add my like terms. So 5x plus 15 equals 100. So I'm going to bring that up here so I have more room. If you write smaller than me, you don't have to do that. Minus 15. 5x equals 85. Divide by 5. X equals, what is 85 divided by 5? 17. All right, so what were we trying to do though? So we found something. Sometimes we get excited. We're like, yes, I did it. I'm done. But what were we asked to find? So if we go back, we want to find segment XY. So that's this whole thing. So we need to make sure that we take this and we plug it back in. So 2 times 17 plus 15. So that's how big XY is. So 2 times 17, that's 34, plus 15 is 49 units. Awesome. All right. Don't forget, guys, this is a video, so anytime you need to pause it, slow me down, rewind it, watch it again, please do that. Or if you just need to pause it so you can send me an email and ask me a question, or come to my Zoom office hours, please do that. Don't feel like you're in this alone. I know that you're online, but I am here to help in any way that I can. All right, example 3. In trapezoid ABCD, JH is the median, find X. So the problem here is we don't even have a picture. So first thing I'm gonna have you do, pause the video, draw a picture of trapezoid ABCD with JH as the median. All right, so how did you draw yours? Did you draw it so it looked like this? Did you draw it so it looked like this? Was it upside down? Like how, it doesn't matter how you drew it. I'm gonna go ahead and draw mine and see, it doesn't tell us it's isosceles. So I'm not gonna draw mine to look isosceles, but that's just personal preference. I'm gonna draw mine like that. Doesn't matter where you put A, B, C, and D. JH is the median though, so J and H will have to be in the middle. And A, B, and D, C are the bases. So A, B, C, D. Now, whenever you do label any polygon, you need to make sure that you go in order. So if I go A, B, this one has to be C. I have to go either clockwise or counterclockwise. I can't jump across my shape. So if I did A, B, C, D, I'm jumping across my shape, and then you wouldn't call it A, B, C, D. So make sure you go either clockwise or counterclockwise. All right, so AB is 10x minus 2. DC is 5, and JH is 3x plus 6. All right, so I'm gonna challenge you guys. Pause the video, see if you can find out how big X is. Okay, so we can't use that logical thinking strategy here because this has an X in it. We can't find out how far away 5 is from 3x plus 6. So we're gonna have to use this algebraic strategy. The median is equal to base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. So our median is 3x plus 6. It's gonna equal 10x minus 2 plus 5. Don't forget to divide by 2. All right, so again, we have lots of different strategies here. I'm going to use a different strategy this time. So instead of multiplying by 2 first, which you can definitely do, if you decide to multiply by 2, please remember that this entire side has to get multiplied by 2. So you'd have to do 2 times 3x and 2 times 6. A different strategy, just to show you something different, instead of multiplying by 2, is to divide everything by 2 on this side. So 3x plus 6 equals 10x divided by 2 is 5x. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, and 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So you can also use that strategy. You don't have to just multiply by that denominator. Either way, now I need to add some like terms together. So 3x plus 6 equals 5x plus 1.5. And now we're just going to solve this equation. So minus 5x minus 6. I'm going to go over here. So it looks like I have negative 2x, negative 2x. Those will cancel out. Those will cancel out. 1.5 minus 6 is 4.5. Negative 4.5. Divide by negative 2. 2.25. All right, so if that's x, what are we trying to find? Ooh, all we need to do is find x. Now, one thing that you can do, though, to see if you're right after you start doing all this algebra is plug it in. Remember, your median should be halfway in between this. So if I do 10 times 2.25 minus 2, this is 20.5. And then 3 times 2.25 plus 6, this would be 12.75. Now remember, this should be in between those. So if I add these two numbers together and divide by 2, I should get that. So 5 plus 20.5 divided by 2 is my median. So I can tell, even when our stuff gets a little tricky here, I can actually tell if it's right. Same thing up here on this guy. I can check it. So we got x was 17. So 2 times 17 plus 15, we did that right as 49. And then 3 times 17 is 51. Isn't 50 right in between 49 and 51? So that's how we know we got it right. So we don't have to just be like, yay, I got a number, I did it. Like, we can actually find out if we got it right. All right, example 4. This is our challenge problem for today. So I encourage you, pause the video, give it a try. If you're wrong, who cares? You're at home by yourself. You can erase it. We can redo it. But give it a try. See what you can come up with. So we can see here that S, T, and UV are the bases because they're marked parallel. So that's what's going to get added together and divided by 2. And then WX is our median. And we know for sure it's a median because remember the median connects the midpoints. So W is a midpoint, X is a midpoint. So median is equal to, so 7x plus 8. So I'm going all the way back to this formula right here. The median is equal to the bases added together divided by 2. So the median is equal to the bases 10x plus 5 added together minus 1 all divided by 2. All right, your strategy on solving this is totally up to you. I'm going to use a different strategy. I'm going to add my like terms first. So 10 and 8, 18x, 5 minus 1, divided by 2, 7x plus 8. So this time I'm going to go back to that multiplying by 2, but I'm going to multiply this entire side by 2, so I'm going to put that in parentheses. Those 2's will cancel out. 2 times 7, go over here. 14x plus 16 equals 18x minus 4. So we're doubling this whole side, not just the 7, not just the 8, the whole thing. And now we just have to solve it from here. So minus 18x minus 16, negative 4x equals, cancel, negative 20, x equals 5. All right, so we found an answer. Don't forget to make sure you found what you were really looking for. So it asks us to find the length of each base. X is not the base. X is what we plug in to find the base. So this guy is going to be 10 times 5 plus 5. So this should be 55. And this guy will be 8 times 5 minus 1. So 40 minus 1, 39. Now again, we can make sure we're right by plugging in here, and whatever we get for this median should be halfway in between. So that's going to be 7 times 5 plus 8. So that's 35 plus 8 is 43. So is 43 actually halfway in between? Well, we can do 55 minus 43, so that's 12 away. So this should also be 12 away, right? 43 minus 12 is 31. Oh, because I did my math totally wrong. Oh, no, I didn't. All right, I had to pause the video for myself to figure out where I made my mistake. Just like you, I will make mistakes. It's okay. It's part of learning. It's part of figuring things out. So you may have caught my mistake. I might have been going too fast for you. It took me a second. But right here, I accidentally wrote, so it's supposed to be a -1, and I accidentally wrote it as a -4. So I need to go back and change that, which means my answer shouldn't be 5, which is a really good idea to check your answers, because that's how I figured out that my answer was wrong. Because if x was 5, this should have been 12 away, so it should have been a 31, but we got 39. So I'm going to go back and fix this. So sorry if you wrote in pen, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to a -1. So that's going to change this to a -1. Okay, so then what does that change? That changes this here to a -17 instead. And then 17 divided by 4, 4.25. Now, 5 probably seems like a much nicer answer because it's not a decimal. So don't be afraid to check your answers even if you get whole numbers, because 5 was not the answer, 4.25. All right, so now I'm going to check that and see if that worked. So we know that's wrong, so erase that. All right, so try again. 10 times 4.25 plus 5. 10 times 4.25 plus 5. 47.5. So if I do this one, 4.25 plus 8. 7 times 4.25 plus 8. 37.75. 8 times 4.25 minus 1. 33. All right, so let's see if this is right. Still doesn't look right. All right, so I looked at this and I said it still doesn't look right. Why doesn't it look right? Well, just looking at here, do you see these are about 10 away from each other? This is not 10 away from each other. Oy, 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 I still have another mistake. All right, so I paused the video and looked at it again. This was not my problem. Oh, man. All right, 5 minus 1 is +4. That was my problem the whole time. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I will not make this mistake again because on the next problem that I do, I'll be really focusing on making sure that I get my numbers right. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn stuff. You ready to erase one more time? All right, good news is we don't really have to erase that much. We're going to alter. So this should have been a +4. 5 minus 1 is +4. So this is +4, which makes this -12, which makes this +3. Awesome. All right. Third time's a charm, right? Fingers crossed. Okay. 10 times 3 plus 5, 35. 7 times 3 plus 8 is 29. And 8 times 3 minus 1 is 23. All right, 35 minus 29. Those are 6 away from each other. 29 minus 23. Oh my gosh, we did it! Now, if you did this on your own, you might have gotten this right on the first try. That is fantastic. Give yourself a high five. It's really important that we pay close attention to our signs, and if we make a mistake, it's all right. We just gotta look for it, ask for help if we need help, and then learn from our mistake. All right, I hope I didn't confuse you too much at the very end there. I hope you saw that that's part of the learning, making mistakes, figuring things out. All right, if you have any questions, anything that you're still a little confused on, or anything I confused you on today, please reach out. You can hit me up on Zoom. You can hit me up on email anytime. Have a fantastic day.